it'd be funny to see those guys swap places. What if Tomlin ends up in Baltimore and Harbaugh ends up in Pittsburgh? That I know that's kind of the running joke going on in the internet, and that was before Tomlin was available. And so now that seems like a real a possibility. I don't see why Pittsburgh wouldn't be interested in John Harbaugh. Everyone else is.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Sports Seriously NFL podcast, part of the Sports Seriously Network, proudly presented to you by USA Today. My name is Chris Bumbaca. I'm filling in for our usual party host, Joe Rivera, who's down for the count today. Joe, feel better, man? Sorry, wild card weekend got the best of you, but it tends to, right, Prince? And that's who I'm joined today by, Prince Grimes of USA Today, one of our preeminent ball knowers. Prince, how you doing, man?
Doing good, Chris. Glad to be back. Feeling fulfilled off a wild card weekend. Happy to get into it.
Yeah, it was a wild card weekend to remember. The first 5 games delivered 4 game-winning touchdowns, scored the final 3 minutes, and 4 of those games were decided by less than 5 points. Highest number ever in a single round of the playoffs. Also, 12 fourth-quarter lead changes, which is the most ever in a single postseason. So, it was just a wild back-and-forth weekend. The first 4 games, especially the 2 on Saturday, the first 2 on Sunday, were just really, I think, the top end of what the NFL product can be. And then, of course, I showed up at the last 2 games of the weekend, and they were pretty boring and and not as exciting as the first 4. So that's just how it goes with the action there in New England and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and you know what? Even the second half of that Steelers game was exciting. It was exciting to see how Houston got after Aaron Rodgers, and that defense really turned it up. C.J. Stroud stunk it up a little bit out there, so first half was a little ugly, but that game turned up. And honestly, this first round of the playoffs was as good as I can remember in a long time. Like, between those first 4 games, we saw one-score games. It come down to the final possession a lot of those times, and the results were completely unpredictable. It really followed a pattern we've seen all season where, there's so much parity in the NFL. These results are kind of unpredictable. Even a team like the Panthers playing the Rams down to the final possession. Who saw that coming? The spread was 10.5 points. I guess Chris called it. I didn't see it, man. I thought the Rams would run away with it, even after they lost to Carolina in the regular season. I just thought they'd figure it out. But I mean, we're seeing this a lot with some of these younger teams, younger quarterbacks, new coaches, Dave Canales, even Ben Johnson in Chicago. Like, teams are starting to figure it out. The playing field feels a lot more level, and it's making for a really great playoffs.
Yeah, which head coach could give their quarterback the answers? That's one theme. For me, it's always going to be running the ball and playing good defense. Those things are always going to be in vogue this time of year. I look at the Jaguars-Bills game, Prince, in which the Jags had success running the ball against Buffalo there. Bashal Tutin, the rookie running back, pulling off some nice gains, and then the Jags and Liam Cohen just kind of get away from it, and then all of a sudden the game slips away and your season's over. On Monday night, here in Pittsburgh, the Texans, who couldn't run the ball all season long, whose offensive line has been maligned for the better part of 2 years now, find a way to pound the rock against the Steelers' defense that has been susceptible to that all year, and they leave with an easy road win. Well, maybe not too easy by the end of it, sure, but yeah, I think that's why those things are always going to stick out to me. Did anything else, Prince, really catch your eye this weekend as far as large themes?
I mean, yeah, just what you said. That's the flip side of having some of these new teams, new coaches in the playoffs, is you see a lot of bad decisions, quite honestly. I mean, Liam Cohen, obviously the Jaguars should have stuck with the run a little bit more. But he's an OC. He wants to flex his chops here in the playoffs. And I think that backfired a little bit, even though they had a chance there at the end after Josh Allen went ahead and put the Bills up. They came up short. Same thing with Ben Johnson. I thought he had a terrible first half there against Green Bay, and it helped the Packers kind of build that lead. Now, on the flip side of that, Matt LaFleur, who doesn't have the same excuse of being a new coach, he's been around for a while. He gave the game right back to Chicago, basically, with some of his decisions as a coach and not really killing the clock the way they should have, and they just really couldn't push Chicago away. So credit to Ben Johnson and the Bears for figuring it out. But I just go back to that with we didn't talk about Caleb Williams and what a tremendous game he played. Just some of these new teams that are coming up. We're going to see Bo Nix here in this second round of the playoffs, and we're going to get to see how he goes against Josh Allen and how that goes. And so Josh Allen is a big storyline going into the second round. These are the playoffs where you don't have Patrick Mahomes, you don't have Lamar Jackson. The path seems clear for him. We talk about some of these upstart teams over there in the AFC, even in the NFC. How far can Josh Allen go as the guy who's been here and who's almost done it several times, but hasn't quite gotten over that hump yet?
All right, before we get into our deep dives in the divisional round matchups, we got to talk about the news of the day. Steelers' former head coach, Mike Tomlin, steps down after 19 seasons at the helm. I mean, Prince, run the numbers. 7 consecutive playoff losses, 5 of those by double digits. So they're not competitive in any of these postseason games. And but also no losing seasons across those 19 years. Just a model of consistency. What are your initial thoughts to the news?
Yeah, my initial thoughts are that it was time. It was time for each side to go their separate ways. I think Tomlin's a phenomenal coach. I think let's just get that out the way now. Yes, 7 consecutive losses in the playoffs, but also he got there a lot, right? And he got there in a lot of times where it felt like the Steelers shouldn't have been there. And so, thus, all the losing in the playoffs. Like, I didn't expect them to beat the Texans on Monday night, and they didn't. So there's something to be said about not being able to maximize your team in the playoffs, maybe. But I do think it was just time for a change of scenery for Tomlin and for the Steelers. I think he'll be a better voice for a new team if that's what he chooses to do. And I think the Steelers will be better off for going in a different direction and trying to figure out whatever their new identity is going to be under a new coach. Get a new quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is up there in age. They haven't really figured that position out since Big Ben left. And so I think it was time for both sides. And Mike Tomlin will have all the options right there. Whatever he wants to do, he'll have options. I don't think he'll be short on places to go if he wants to coach, or he could just take the year off. Survey the landscape. Adam Schefter reported that he thinks Tomlin's going to go into TV. Think he'd be a great voice on TV. And so we'll see where it goes from here.
All right, where do you want to see him on TV? Let's have this conversation because I know you're always consuming content just like I am. Like, I have thoughts. What are your initial ones on where you would like to see him media
I
wise?
mean, whatever he wants to do, honestly, I could see him on pre and post, kind of just analyzing the game from a coaching perspective, or I could see him on a show like College Game Day, an NFL version of that, right? In the Nick Saban kind of role where he's lending his voice and how he's seen the league over the last 20 years as a head coach, right? So Mike Tomlin's a personality. We've seen his press conferences. He's always got these sayings and things that always make you raise an eyebrow. He's an interesting guy, so I'd be curious. I'd like to see him on TV.
Totally. Everybody in the business says that he's dynamite in these production meetings, which is a good sign if he does want to make this the next step of his career. I think, the Amazon studio they kind of have on lockdown already. I don't know really how he fits in there. Maybe Fox, if Terry Bradshaw ultimately decides to step away in the next couple of years, he could be like I feel like that's a seamless replacement in a way for the elder statesman role, even though Tomlin's a young man, 53 years old, right? But I feel like he'd hop into that role pretty seamlessly alongside Gronkowski and Strahan. CBS a little bit less sure of, but Matt Ryan leaving, so that could be on the table as well as like a studio option for him. And then maybe he wants to call games. Like, I don't know, maybe Fox finds a spot for him in the booth somewhere and he works on like a number 3 or number 4 team and he becomes must watch TV. Maybe CBS is like, hey, um, things aren't going great with Tony Romo. We need a guy to sit in here with Jim Nance for the next couple of years. And that's all of a sudden a star power number 1 spot if he is that good. I have no
Yeah,
idea. But as far as Tomlin leaving, like, I think about when we were growing up and Mike Shanahan was fired, I think, by the Denver Broncos, or at least, they had their split. And I remember being confused. Like, he was the Denver Broncos to me. Same way the Steelers and Tomlin's identities are so intertwined. But Dabo Swinney had a funny line, and he was like 7 to 10 years. That's it before they run you out of town. And the fact that Tomlin made it double that basically is a testament to just how good of a coach he is. So if he does get back into coaching, Prince, I do hope that it's a chance where like he could turn a franchise around, right? Like and provide that stability to anywhere that needs it. Um, but as far as the Steelers' job, like, what kind of candidate do you think they need to get in there, and why is John Harbaugh all of a sudden the best candidate to
I'm
go
glad you
there?
said that because John Harbaugh kind of feels like a good fit. Only because the Steelers don't feel like the type of team that ever wants to really enter a full rebuild, right? They're more like a retool team. They're not going to really strip this thing down. They want to be competitive at all times. And John Harbaugh is a guy who, he's up there in age as far as some of the candidates that are available. So he's not trying to do a rebuild anyway. He wants to win as well. He's a guy who can slot right in there, similar to Tomlin. I don't think Tomlin is necessarily a coach who, if he has a next stop, he wants to enter a rebuild either. He wants to go to a team where he can help them win right away. And so it'd be funny to see those guys swap places. What if Tomlin ends up in Baltimore and Harbaugh ends up in Pittsburgh? That I know that's kind of the running joke going on in the internet, and that was before Tomlin was available. And so now that seems like a real a possibility. I don't see why Pittsburgh wouldn't be interested in John Harbaugh. Everyone else is.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think Mike Tomlin would be the perfect coach for Lamar Jackson, quite honestly. I think he's exactly the kind of guy Lamar can win with. And I think Tomlin has a great deal of respect for him. He calls him Mr. Jackson. That was when he was hoping that he would take it easy on his defenses. But, now the chance to coach him, I think, would be exciting. And it would be quite the storyline. 3 of the 4 AFC North teams have openings. The one team that doesn't, the Cincinnati Bengals and Zach Taylor, seems about right for how they operate
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. I mean, before him, it was what's my guy Marvin Lewis held that job forever, right? He was a similar situation where he couldn't win in the playoffs. By the way, I love that you brought up CBS as options for Bill Cowher because his predecessor in Pittsburgh kind of laid the blueprint for if he wants to go into
I didn't even
TV.
think of
Bill
that.
Cowher went into TV, worked at CBS a long time, and speaking of just kind of that lineage, the Steelers are only looking for their 4th coach since 1969. So maybe they do go young here. Maybe they try to find the next up and coming coach who can usher them into the next era. That kind of has been their track record here.
All right, Prince, let's fast forward to what should be a very fun divisional round matchup. We'll go through the games by schedule. Hopefully, they live up to the excitement we got from Wild Card Weekend. Starting Saturday afternoon, the number 6 seed Buffalo Bills travel to the Rocky Mountains to take on the top seeded Denver Broncos. We talked about it a little bit at the top, but what does Josh Allen and this Bills offense need to do to dethrone the Broncos defense that has really been the power center of this team?
Man, they're just gonna have to stay unpredictable. They're gonna have to pound the rock with James Cook, to set up Josh Allen in that passing game. Because as soon as Denver knows and can get a read on what they're doing, I think it's a wrap. Like that Denver defense is really good. Buffalo doesn't have a lot of pass catchers that can beat, one-on-one coverage and kind of get open against a defense like this. And so Josh Allen's going to have to play superhero ball out there. On the other side, Buffalo, Denver, we know they're going to have to run the rock. That's how you beat the Bills, right? You need to be able to run the rock. And that's not necessarily Denver's strength on offense. I think they're kind of a balanced offense. They want to be able to use the run to set up Bo Nix in that passing game. And so we'll see if they're able to do that. But I could see this coming down to the final possession.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely get a close game. I just don't see Josh going out easy in these playoffs, like you were saying. And yeah, he'll have to put the cape on a couple times if they want to put up some points against this Broncos defense that is just so strong at all 3 levels. I agree with the James Cook point. I expect to see a lot of 6 offensive lineman sets from Buffalo, bringing that extra guy out onto the field, try to control the rock. I'm curious to see if Sean Payton is able to kind of flip his philosophy a little bit, as you were saying, like they run to set up the pass. Maybe they can use Bo a little bit to in the beginning of the game to set up the run in a way, kind of go inverse there. That might be a path forward for them. So I'm interested to see how Peyton approaches this game plan as, I guess, kind of the incumbent in a way, like the top seed. Like, how does he go about it now that he is the challenged rather than the challenger, like they kind of were last year? So should be a good one. I don't know. I don't have any crazy predictions right now, and that's why it was fun last week. I came on here and I said a bunch of things really early Monday morning, and then by Tuesday afternoon, I had changed my mind on a lot of it. But the one thing that I was able to steer clear of was the Bears win. I said that the Bears were winning on the show. Then I picked the Packers in our picks file, but we only live in the Sports Seriously cinematic universe on this show, Prince. So we don't care about the whatever else I had on the record.
It's wild. This game is a pick 'em. Denver's the number 1 seed, and I think they open as an underdog. So that goes to show what odds makers think about Josh Allen. They think he can carry Buffalo to a win, and I'm not going to say he can't.
Yeah, we saw that even with the Jacksonville matchup. A lot of people confused by that line, and it held true, and it held to be correct. So,
yep.
All right, the Saturday night matchup. The number 6 seed San Francisco 49ers travel for an NFC West bout against the top seeded Seattle Seahawks. Both 1 seeds in action on Saturday. Prince, we talked about what the Niners have done to get to this point, overcoming injuries. Is there a guy in the reserves like a Jake Tongas, for example? I love watching that guy play. He came in and did great for George Kittle, even in the beginning of the season. Obviously, they've lost Kittle to a torn Achilles for the rest of this season and possibly all of next, which is just a real travesty in my mind. But, Kyle Shanahan's team, what a job he's done. Can they go in and knock off the number 1 seed?
They can, but I'm not calling it. I think we kind of got a preview of this 2 weeks ago, right? The 49ers had a shot at that 1 seed and couldn't really muster any offense against the Seattle defense, and now they're down George Kittle. I'm just not really expecting much from San Francisco this game. Kyle Shanahan's going to need to really go in his bag, dial up some of those trick plays, get Juwan Jennings out there throwing some more passes to pull this one out, because I don't see it.
Yeah, Juwan Jennings has as many postseason career touchdown passes as Justin Herbert does. So let's let that sink in for a second. I think I might have even called that he was going to throw a touchdown in that Super Bowl when he did it to McCaffrey, I guess on the switchback. This throw though, I think Kyle Shanahan was saying like it was actually too good of a throw. Like he led McCaffrey so perfectly that he was afraid it wasn't going to work because he was hoping that it would just be a little pop pass to McCaffrey who could settle under it and then run. But obviously Christian McCaffrey, an unbelievable athlete, able to adjust to a pass even from a wide receiver, even if he was a highly touted high school recruit. Always love seeing that graphic go viral every time the Niners are doing something with Juwan Jennings.
Yeah, that's surprising. I forgot about that.
It's hilarious. For people who don't know what we're talking about, Juwan Jennings was like the number 5 dual threat recruit in his high school class. I think he was above Sam Darnold, Joe Burrow,
Lamar Jackson.
like that whole class. Like they're all top 10, and then they're like the bottom or the second 5, and Juwan Jennings is sitting there in the 5 spot. Had a nice career in Tennessee, and now being an impact player for a team that is somehow always exciting to watch. So yeah, we'll see. I have a tough time picking the Niners. I'm going to probably go with the Seahawks just because of that defense again, and in the same boat as you there. Moving on to Sunday, the afternoon game. Houston Texans travel to New England to face the Patriots. Texans coming off a great Monday night win over the Steelers. That defense scored twice in the fourth quarter. And like the Seahawks defense, man, that Texans defense to me is so dangerous because they score the football. Every time I have red zone on throughout the season, I feel like in the early window, it's the Texans defense running into the end zone at some point. And then in the afternoon window, it was the Seahawks defense running into the end zone at some point. And then you got the Patriots, who maybe didn't play their best game against the Chargers in the wild card round, but certainly did more than enough to, especially on the defensive side, to walk away with a win. Interesting matchup here, Prince. What are the keys for you?
Chris, there's going to be snot, blood. I mean, it's going to be stuff hitting the fan in this game because these are some defenses here. What stands out to me, C.J. Stroud looked very shook against Pittsburgh to me. He made a lot of bad decisions, particularly in that first half. And so I would like to see if he can regain his composure and play a little bit more poised against this New England defense, which I don't think is as good as Houston. I think Houston has the best defense left in these playoffs, even better than Seattle, in my
Totally
opinion.
different tiers, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure. But that's still a tough defense over there in New England, and I don't think they're going to make things easy on CJ Stroud. Now, if his running game shows up like it did in Pittsburgh, that completely changes the game because we didn't know Houston could run the ball like that, and that's kind of how you got to beat New England. To me, you got to establish that running game. Woody Marks looked phenomenal. Nick Chubb was a nice change of pace there, and so if he gets that, I think I like Houston a little more. Although the Nico Collins injury, that's big. Drake May, first time in the playoffs. He had his moments against LA, but I don't think he was the sharpest either. That Houston defense could give him a lot of trouble. And so I think I'll lean Houston here, but I do want to see what happens with Nico Collins.
Yeah, the Nico Collins, he's going to be in concussion protocol throughout the week. He had to leave on a cart, actually, from the sideline against the Steelers. A lot of passes from Stroud on Monday night that were there, but a little bit outstretched, a little hospitally in a way, if you want to call it that, quite honestly. And yeah, Stroud. So here's the thing about Stroud: if he's fumbling when he's trying to make things happen because the offense needs him to, right? And this defense is standing on their head, and the Texans need points. That's one thing, but sloppiness is just not it, right? Like, and that's what he was last. Like, he was sloppy.
Yeah.
On the red zone interception, he actually has a really clean pocket. He just needs to step up and find a guy or take off with his legs. And instead, he does like the footwork there. I'm not a throwing mechanic, right? Like, but it was a complete mess as he's trying to throw on the run, and he puts a little duck right into the arms of Brandon Eccles there, killing a drive. He can't hang on to any snaps. Those are real issues come playoff time, and it really risks the Texans wasting what is a generational defense, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Or just take the sack, right? Like some of those
just
times,
take the sack.
Damn, your defense is so good. Take the 3 points. You'll live to fight another day.
Exactly. Nick Chubb, to me, ran really great last night. I think he was 10 carries for 48 yards, and obviously Woody Marks putting up a season high was just not in my didn't have that in my notebook coming into this one. When I'm writing down the keys to the game, I did not have that one. For the Patriots to have success, I think the Chargers was a nice warm up for them because of that defense being also a good unit. And May really had to work for his intermediate passing game, and luckily for him, he's got an extremely talented arm and the touch passes and how he's able to layer balls into that intermediate zone in between defenders. He's going to have to do that a bunch against the Texans, I think, if they're ever in zone. I think they're more of like a man team, and then he'll have to go lean on his tight ends as he's comfortable doing. So there's paths for the Patriots. Texans are not going to make it easy, man. Like you said, D'Amico Ryans, defensive head coach, Mike Vrabel, defensive head coach. These guys are going to have their guys out there hitting.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun one. Drake May's gonna have to use his legs too, something Aaron Rodgers can't really do anymore. Couldn't get away from the rush when there were lanes to run. We'll see Drake May use his legs a lot more.
Something he looked really good doing against the Chargers, but also he's out here really playing with fire in the pocket, escaping shoestring tackles out of sacks. I don't know. Texans are a little bit scarier in wrapping up. There's a difference when it's Odafe Owe, a player who I really like, when it's Danielle Hunter or Will Anderson Jr. That's next level.
A little different.
What I mean?
A little different.
And then the finale of the divisional round. The Los Angeles Rams travel to the Windy City to face the Chicago Bears. The Miracle Bears. The Boisterous Bears. I mean, whatever title you want to slap on them, they win games and they put out great locker room content after those wins. So, Prince, who do you got here?
The Rams always kind of fall short of my expectations, and the Bears always exceed them. So it'd be foolish for me to say the Bears can't win. Obviously, they're at home, and the Panthers almost beat the Rams. So the Bears have a chance here. If I'm just picking off of the team that I think is the best, I think the Rams are the better team. I think the Rams should win this game. Matthew Stafford is obviously having an MVP season. There's like one or two plays throughout the course of a game where he just glitches. He just like makes a decision that is like, why'd you throw that? So one of those plays, if he does that against Chicago, that could be the play that gives the Bears the win, because the way Caleb Williams is playing right now, especially in the second half of games, these fourth quarters, the guy's lights out. He can make every throw on the field. He's faster than people give him credit for. Like, if he decides to take off, he can really run. And so I think the Rams win this game. I don't think it's going to be an easy win. I think it's going to come down to the fourth quarter, coaching. You got Sean McVay going against Ben Johnson. We saw Ben Johnson make some questionable decisions in that wild card game. I think the coaching is going to be a huge difference in this game, and I give Sean McVay the edge as someone who's been there, who's won a Super Bowl. He's been around the block a while. I'm going with the Rams in this one.
Least number of questionable decisions wins, right? That's how
Exactly.
This one's gonna go. No, I think that's a great point, Prince. I'm with you. The thing with McVay that always kind of irks me is that they'll run the ball very efficiently to start games, and it'll kind of be the bread and butter. And then with a lead, yeah, teams are expecting the run, but they just get away from it so fast, even when it's still working. That happened to them in Seattle during that crazy Thursday night game. It's happened to them kind of in all of their losses, honestly. I love to say that the Rams should be 14-3, 15-2. How many times were they actually beat versus beating themselves? So, yeah, I think that if the Rams don't beat themselves, they'll leave Chicago victorious. And Sean McVay coaches a clean game. And, the thing with Matthew Stafford that you mentioned is interesting. I feel like maybe he just glitches against Mike Jackson of the Carolina Panthers, right? Like,
Right.
I think he picked him up in both of those matchups. I trust him to play a clean game, but his contention point is going to be the fact that Chicago is really good at taking the ball away. I can see Kevin Byard sitting back there picking off a pass at an important moment, honestly. So if the Rams are able to avoid that, they should be fine. But I'm not one to really count out these Bears. I have the Rams close, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's arm confidence with Stafford, right? He
Yeah.
he trusts that arm so much, he'll sling it anyway, and sometimes that can get him in trouble. But yeah, it should be a close one.